Megami Tensei Gaiden Last Bible Specials. Yeah, I'm not sure how to continue it. Well, there is a little continuation to the Last Bible series, and it isn't special. It's like Last Bible tediousness. Okay, that's stupid, and I'm leaving it in that kind of pronunciations because it also was stupid. And it drops all or almost all quality of life features that previous Megami Tensei, not just Last Bible games had. Say that this proves that getting close to quality of life features, you won't want them when playing a game without them. And that's why I'm playing the games only in release here order, if they are part of the franchise, of course. However, this is a rare situation for wanting them, because this game was released after Megami Tensei games that add quality of life features. And this is tedious because you would research the dungeon from the very beginning every day. Especially since a final dungeon is so long that it becomes tedious to complete, and which overstays its welcome, and you only can save in fixed locations, only in towns or village, on a handheld that eats batteries like crazy. Wait a minute, is it possible to beat this game on official hardware? When said arcade eats batteries like crazy, and the final dungeon is so long that I think you will need to change batteries to be able to finish the final dungeon. Saving the game wouldn't work to change batteries because you would lose your progress in the dungeons if you go back to a village or town one way or other to save the game. So you will lose the amount of batteries charges before to reach the same point in the final dungeons. Does the NTL a slave function? Still, doesn't the NTL lose the charge when removing batteries? I wanted to say, I always expected players to beat the game on an NTL that eats batteries like crazy with fixed save locations. But it turns out that Sims developed the game. So the question is aptly to them. Then again, Sims logo doesn't show up on when starting the game. It is only Allah's logo on the main menu with Sega text under Sega having a splash screen with their own logo on it. I didn't read the credits, so I don't know if Sims logo or anything from them appears in it. There's Sega connections because Sega publishes a game only for Sega Game Gear, which is the NTL that eats batteries like crazy, from what I heard. I guess Sega and Atlus already started to have some kind of connections around the time of this game's release. Of course, I also a fan-made patch made by Mr. Richard 999 SS translations and done. Actually, wait, it is the same tone. If it is the same tone, then they are two familiar names and one new name. The only complaint is that here and there the text was glitching. I didn't know my throat up about story because there isn't much of a story or enough dialogue to figure out what I think about the story. But the premise is just that Machter needs to conquer 4 dungeons and reclaim Jerusalem from the clutch of the Dark Lord Graius. Wait a minute. Graius weren't a good guy, at least in one previous Lost Bible game. And yes, the main character is a default name set in game. Now about other party members. There isn't a story relevant party members, either omens or beast demon party members. However, you can recruit omen party members only in 1 or 2 villages, which you need to name them. So the only important character is Machtel for the bare-bones story. Of course, there is also base recruiting, but I'll talk about it after I'll talk about the basic gameplay or gameplay. I'll start with village or towns. I guess from now on I'll just say villages. Villages are just menus, so you can't really tell with NPCs to learn more about any dungeon or basics of how the game works. Okay, there is only one place where you may clean up the game, and the option beyond is called listening, and it's just listening to random text. But the option is only in 1 or 2 villages. Sure, there are only 4 villages, the same amount as dungeon, but they still is pain in the ace to backtrack to the previous village, because you can only backtrack through the dungeon between villages. Okay, the shortcut is unlocked in the dungeon, but because of random encounters, it still is pain in the ace. Speaking of which, the dungeon part is first person, I guess, dungeon crawler with random encounters, which are turn-based combat, only after selecting each party member's actions puzzle happens. Of course, with auto puzzle function only for said encounter, talking with the pigs to recruit it, and other options. And fighting as regular commands, fighting using IP med weapon, using magic or items, and then card, which I get use in this game, but it wasn't enough to beat the game. The amount of enemies now are shown from sprites. About recruiting beasts, you can recruit them by answering the right questions, which seems to be difficult. Then again, I managed to recruit the first encounter in the first try, but then afterwards I had difficulties recruiting them. However, that's not all the beasts themselves can start discussions. In either case, if you fail to recruit the beasts, then they attack you. Understandable if I start to talk. But what do you mean you attack me after you start to talk if I fail to recruit you? That's just cheap shot for enemies to attack you. Well, in some cases, enemies tries to talk with you twice in a row. So, without event attacks in middle of talking attempts. Thankfully, enemies don't spam talking attack combo, otherwise the game would be unplayable. But it is another reason why the game is tedious. Fusion system is only between those beasts, which can be done either from a spell or only in one village, which is in the starting village, not the last village. Only for me, for most part, a beast could fuse only to a beast that I'm already using as material, so the same level piece, or to a lower level piece. Only here and there I was able to fuse beasts to higher level. In some instances it was when using the same level beasts as fusion materials. Of course, in both instances, you can have only one piece of each species. Of course, dungeons just don't have a piece to fight, including boss battles or recruit, but also you need to solve puzzles, which are riddles to get right item in the right place. Only to get said items you need to check multiple times the same place, because getting them is just RNG. Now, what quality of life features aren't in this game? There isn't an auto mapper. Thankfully, there is a mapper, but which doesn't work on the new moon. But when it is activated, it stays up until you exit the dungeon. And thankfully, most dungeon floors aren't confusing, except later floors in the last dungeon, Jerusalem. This seems expect players to map the dungeon layout manually for until they is that its battery is like crazy. This game come with an output or a guide with a map layout of all floors or all dungeons. Inventory limit expect as it was in the first last playable game. Speaking about inventory, there isn't an item description. For spells, it is as a spell, so if you don't use a spell, which Mahtel doesn't get, then basically there also isn't spell descriptions. I'm not sure if it counts as quality of life feature, because it was part of the franchise from the very beginning. I think, yeah. It was the case in the first game, and it is that leveling up doesn't level HP and HP in this game, unlike in the very first Megami Tensei game, I think, yeah. So that doesn't mean that this game removed part of the franchise. One more annoying part of the game is that weapons can break, and when using autoball, there isn't warning about it. And equipment can be done only in dungeons. But it seemed that equipment was auto-equipped as a start of the game when buying said equipment. But that isn't the case. I don't have a problem only with the last dungeon, but there were problems from the very start of the game that I managed to get past. I already reset the game at the start of the game when I was getting low on money, because reviving other party members cost a lot of money, and that there's chance it can fail. That's because I couldn't flee, no matter how many times I tried. And there wasn't an enemies didn't give me a lot of chance to try fleeing. Then because if Mahtel tastes there isn't punishment, the only punishment could be is getting sent back to the previous village fully healed, only for Mahtel fully ill. Then I just grinded mainly for money and level ups as bonus only for Mahtel. However, no matter how many times I level up, random encounters didn't seem to become weaker. It seems they stay as the same power, and since they were still able to defeat me in this or Mahtel in the same amount of attacks, and Mahtel was level 1. When I noticed weird stuff in the shop, and then I wondered if it works as free spell from the item manual. Then it was OP in the first 2 dungeons. But then the second dungeon's caffeine pulse stopped me, because there isn't any indications if you solved it. To solve it, you need to only open coffins that same names, and it doesn't indicate when it's complete. And then you need to backtrack to previous floor to now place to solve to progress the dungeons. For the fact I did a puzzle that doesn't indicate that it is solved. And then the third dungeon I get through without any problem. But then the retracing steps in the fourth dungeon became a problem when the beast defeated me because of talking to attack strategy. Especially when the later floor in the dungeon is confusing. Getting to the floor may not be a problem, but together with beasts to talk and at start steady it gets tedious. Especially if there isn't an easy way to read those encoded, like Estoma, if there is a way to read those encoded. It is tedious when enemies beat me because of talking to attack strategy before I reach the confusing floor, and then I need to return to reach the same point from the very start of the dungeon to a chance to get defeated before reaching even the point which I reached before. Like I even tried using cheats, but it didn't work out for me. Like cheats themselves didn't work out. I faced because I didn't set the cheats right correctly in the emulator, but I couldn't look onto add it to because the site where I got the cheat a problem. Well, in clip art the cheat was saved, or whatever the copying, like it was in copy history on Windows. That's after trying to find a code which shows a map layout of every floor for every dungeon, but I couldn't find it. Well, maybe that is something that the game balances out tediousness, or at least tries to, and it's at least early pushes are defeatable just by paralyzing them. Then again, also if material is paralyzed, then the party gets sent out of the dungeon. At least in the last dungeon, even though I think I'm clever than the enemy beasts, the instant attack still works on me, on Magdal. Also on the rest of party members, but my problem is Magdal. Even if you preview fusions, because you see only weaker forms, using spell it still costs MP. Speaking of spells, spells are categorized, of course, in different categories. But the members can change up, but then their stats are reset. However, Magdal can change his job. Magdal is stuck to one job. If the enemy is defeated, then a different party member doesn't auto-change targets. That counts just as a miss. Dungeons are fountains which can heal, but they are an RNG, so you need to check in multiple times to fully heal, and they are only few. If dungeons are fountains, then 5 LAs fix save locations, and not the option to save the game all the time can't be in dungeons, especially on an until device that eats batteries like crazy. The opening is bunkered, not just music but everything in it, like animations, only it doesn't show the game accurate eye face. The opening is hype unlike the game itself, and from what I heard, it seems like music for the opening is like person music. I guess person music role started in this game. Maybe it isn't a bad game, but it also isn't a good game. But that is only my subjective take. Okay, it is at least a decent painkiller, but other than that, I don't have anything to say about it. Well, maybe try to binge play it, the experience become worse for me. Playing on and off probably would improve the experience at least a little bit. So yeah, you can just check it. Check it as much as you like, if you can find the game. Like if you feel that it becomes too tedious, then you can just stop playing the game. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, like the video, subscribe and comment. See you next time.